This week was another wild one in the Bitcoin market. We continue to see the price fall, and there's lots of uncertainty, doubt, and fear. The Bitcoin critics seem to be taking a victory lap. They think they're dancing on graves. And the big question, is Bitcoin over? Or will it come back as it has every time before? All right, let's get into this week's on-chain update, which is brought to you by FTX. As we can see here, Bitcoin currently trading just over $21,000, up about 1.3% over the last 24 hours. Then you can see that the market cap has dramatically dropped, down only around $400 billion or so. Now remember, Bitcoin's inflation rate still sitting at 1.76%, and over 90% of the 21 million Bitcoin have been issued already. You can see real exchange volumes coming in at $4.1 billion. The mining reward, miners being paid just under $20 million every 24 hours to continue to secure the most decentralized secure computing network in the world. GBTC, the discount all the way down to 34% to NAV now, which is a major issue in the industry. And of course, Bitcoin down just under 70% from its all-time high. If we then take a look comparing Bitcoin, gold, and the S&P 500, you can see that Bitcoin's down 35% from just 1 year ago. But if you zoom out to only any other time frame, from 2 years to 10 years, Bitcoin continues to absolutely dominate all of the other assets. Then we can go look at Bitcoin price's closing history, and sitting at $21,348. Bitcoin's traded higher for 539 days. If you had bought Bitcoin and held it for 89% of its life until today, you'd be in the money, but about 11% of the time, you wouldn't be. Last but not least, we can compare Bitcoin, gold, S&P 500, NASDAQ, and TLT. You can see that the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin, 124%, still dominating all of the other assets. And then lastly, the Sharpe ratio, 5-year basis, sitting just around 1, and that is much more attractive than the other assets. Next, we can take a look at this data point, which was provided by Sven Henrik, where he said, only one more rate hike and we're at or exceeding the historic Fed capitulation trend as the ever-increasing debt construct brings about a recession and the Fed has to intervene by cutting rates. You can see that red line there, just down only. If the Fed continues to hike interest rates, things may start to break. That then leads to thinking about what the future market expectations are. And what we can see is for December 2023, the Fed funds rate has fallen by 60 basis points over the last 9 days, according to Dylan LeClaire. Then if we start to take a look at the Bitcoin market, what we can see is that hash ribbons, which ultimately will visualize the miner collapse. As the price of Bitcoin goes down, miners who can't keep a very low cost of operations, they eventually give up. They could shut off their operations and they actually start to sell the coins that they previously mined. Bottoms in the Bitcoin market in these bear markets normally coincide with miner capitulation. The weak miners are bankrupted, adding to sell pressure in a cascade. Then the ribbon recovers, and that's where you ultimately will see those green circles in this chart from Willy Woo equaling the bottom. It looks like there is deleveraging right now, as he stated, but we are not quite there to the bottom yet. Then lastly, we can go and we can check out Checkmate, which says all 3 Bitcoin MV-RV cohort ratios are underwater. The aggregate market, underwater on a cost basis standpoint. Long-term holders are underwater, and short-term holders are underwater as well. It's exactly what you would expect to see near a market bottom. And then, of course, David Puel pointing out that the MV-RV crosses between long-term holders and short-term holders. Well, we're there, getting close again. And what this means is that the short-term holder cost basis is actually below the long-term holder cost basis. What that usually signals is that the short-term holders, they're in trouble. Eventually they give up, and usually they just walk away. Now, of course, all of these metrics, they're great data points, and you should pay attention to each one of them. But they ultimately can't be relied on unilaterally. You have to look at the summary of all of the data. You've got to put it all together, and you've got to say to yourself, I am only playing a probability game. If I think that I'm a day trader, which 95% of you are not and shouldn't try to be, do I actually want to try to time the bottom? Or do I simply want to understand if the structural elements of Bitcoin are actually still intact? And if I can look at the fundamentals, the underlying metrics that aren't involving price, and I see that Bitcoin is still healthy, it's still decentralized, it's still executing the code as it was designed, and it's still providing the same value and utility to end users, but the price has simply decoupled from those fundamentals, Then usually in past bear markets, simply dollar cost averaging has served really well for those people. Now, history isn't necessarily a guide in terms of telling us what's going to happen in the future, but it does serve as a great way to understand how it's played out in the past. Now, speaking of dollar cost averaging, a place like FTX allows you to buy Bitcoin incredibly cheap, sometimes as much as 85% cheaper than their competitors. And they're also adding digital stocks, which will allow you to buy those stocks with no transaction fees and no payment for order flow. If you're into Bitcoin, if you like these updates, I suggest you go check out FTX, where you can buy Bitcoin with super low fees. Now, this is financial advice, but if you do your own research and you take a look at all the data, something tells me that a lot of you guys will see what I'm seeing, which is that the underlying fundamentals appear to be very healthy. And it looks like that price decoupling from fundamentals could just simply be presenting an opportunity to the market. Hope you guys enjoy these updates, and I'll see you guys next weekend.
Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and see you next time.